Before I close, I want to warn the American people who are watching at home. You may hear lies and smears in this hearing that'll challenge my loyalty to and my love for our country. Those who oppose my nomination imply that I am loyal to something or someone other than God, my own conscience, and the Constitution of the United States. Accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modi's puppet, not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters. The same tactic was used against President Trump and failed. The American people elected President Trump with a decisive victory and mandate for change. The fact is, what truly unsettles my political opponents is I refuse to be their puppet.
A few moments later.
We have 2 leaders of our 2 great countries who are very good friends and who are very focused on how we can strengthen those shared objectives and those shared interests.
Just today, Tulsi Gabbard said that Putin and Trump are, quote, very good friends. Last night, we reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network, in which she said that Trump was good friends with a world leader. We said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview shows that Gabbard was referring to Trump and Indian Prime Minister Modi. I'll clear that up.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about fake news, the Associated Press and MSNBC having to issue embarrassing retractions because they didn't do basic research and journalism, right? Their Trump derangement made them jump on some quotes that Tulsi Gabbard said out of context, and they went to publish a story claiming that Tulsi said something that she didn't say. Okay, in this case, what they tried to do is that they tried to take some quotes from Tulsi Gabbard in an interview with an Indian news outlet in which she is clearly, again, just from first glance, talking about the relationship between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, okay, the leader of India. However, again, I'm not sure what happened when it comes to MSNBC and the AP's coverage of this story, but for whatever reason, they decided to report on this as if President Trump was talking about Putin.
He's not the only one who says it. Just today, Tulsi Gabbard said that Putin and Trump are, quote, very good friends. Luke, how disconnected is this from where the majority of Americans are? Over 60% of Americans support Ukraine. 2% are more on the side of Russia. How disconnected is this administration with this country on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, Trump's views are completely out of step with the views of most Americans. But on this issue, it appears to me that he does not care much that he is so out of step with Americans. He views himself and Vladimir Putin as sort of bonded in victimhood. He has said repeatedly about how they were victims of the first impeachment, and that people like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi went after them, the 2 of them together, and Putin suffered just like Trump suffered. And so in Trump's view of the world, the 2 of them are sort of bound together as allies, which, you know, it flies in the face of decades and decades of American foreign policy. And I just don't know how Vladimir Zelensky is going to sit there and watch them divide up his country and hand it off to Russia and agree to that. I can't imagine that Ukraine would agree to that. So, you know, it's a very warped worldview from traditional American foreign policy, and it is, as you point out, very out of step with the views of most Americans.
Yeah, and there are a lot of Americans who won't pay attention. Foreign policy is not a top issue. But for all those elected Republicans who have firmly understood our adversarial relationship with Russia for years and years and why it is that way, you got to wonder what they're thinking.
Yeah, so they got to be thinking that you're fake news, right? Because that is not what Tulsi said. Again, if you watch the whole interview, okay, it is clear that Tulsi was not referring to President Trump and Putin's relationship. She was referring to President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, their relationship. She says that, yes, they are very good friends. In the whole context that, again, clearly is available for these so-called journalists to see before they report on it.
See a new administration coming in with President Trump's leadership in the United States, of course, Prime Minister Modi's longstanding leadership here in India. We have two leaders of our two great countries who are very good friends and who are very focused on how we can strengthen those shared objectives and those shared interests.
So in a sense, it's taking forward what we already have in terms of the strategic partnership, and that's one of your primary goals, right?
It is.
And how were your meetings to that end?
It is. I've been having great meetings, and of course this began with Prime Minister Modi's visit to President Trump in Washington, D.C., very shortly after he was inaugurated back into office for a second term, where they really set the tone and set the vision for where a stronger U.S.-India partnership and friendship can lead to. And so my visit here is really predicated on the work that has already been done. And I've been having great conversations with my counterparts here in the Indian government. I just met with the Minister of Defense a few minutes ago and looking forward to visiting with Prime Minister Modi here later today.
Yeah, so clearly in full context of what she said, there's nothing here at all that even comes close to what MSNBC and also the Associated Press said that she said. So again, my question is how, right? Like, how does this happen? How do you take that conversation in full context? Okay, it is clear that she's not talking about Trump and Putin, okay, that she's talking about Trump and the Prime Minister of India. How do you get Putin out of this, right? I have a theory, okay, but MSNBC, they were forced to issue multiple retractions because apparently multiple of their shows, their Trump-deranged shows, decided to air this fake news. Take a look.
Last night, The Last Word reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network in which she said Trump was good friends with the world leader. Now, we said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview was subsequently released, and it showed that Gabbard was referring to Donald Trump and the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi.
Last night, we reported on excerpts of an interview between the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and an Indian TV news network, in which she said that Trump was good friends with a world leader. We said that world leader was Vladimir Putin, but the full interview shows that Gabbard was referring to Trump and Indian Prime Minister Modi. Clear that up.
Yeah, so completely embarrassing moment for MSNBC. Okay, they had to issue an on-air retraction. And who knows? I mean, you know, at this point, they're not really a journalistic news outlet. They're just commentary. So, I mean, I'm surprised they even came out with a retraction to try to save face. But we're going to talk a little bit more about why they did this. But I want to touch here real quick on the Associated Press because they also ran this story. And they had to remove the story because it wrongly claimed Tulsi said that Trump and Putin are, quote, very good friends. So let's read here. The Associated Press has retracted a story it published Monday, which wrongly claimed that Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard said that President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin were good friends. The Associated Press has withdrawn its story about U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard saying President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are very good friends. Tulsi was talking about Trump and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The AP will publish a corrected version of the story, a statement from AP said. The link to the original story displays a page unavailable message. The outlet published an updated piece reflecting Gabbard saying that Modi and Trump were good friends, including an editor's note at the end acknowledging the AP deleted the original article that contained erroneous reporting. Quote, the AP has removed its story about U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard saying President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are, quote, very good friends because it did not meet our standards. We notified customers and published a corrected story with an editor's note to be transparent about the error, the Associated Press told Fox News Digital in a statement. Yeah, they have to feel some type of way about addressing their fake news to Fox News, right? Which is the outlet that these liberal news outlets claim is not real news, okay? But once again, the liberal news is projecting, right? Because they know that they are fake news. Okay. So again, the AP got a whole lot of backlash for this. Alexa Henning, Tulsi's deputy chief of staff, addressed the headline on X. Quote, "The AP is total trash. DNI Tulsi Gabbard was referring to PM Modi and President Trump, and this is the headline they push. This is why no one trusts the meticulously incompetent and purposely biased media. If this is a clear example of pushing a solely political narrative, then nothing is," Henning wrote. So she's right. She's 100% right. They did this because they're Trump deranged, and because they are trying to push a political narrative. Any story that paints President Trump in a negative light, doesn't matter how well sourced it is or how not well sourced it is, they're going to run with it, right? They don't care about actually doing their due diligence and doing real fact checking and making sure that, hey, this is what was said and this wasn't said. Because if you listen to MSNBC's explanation, right, listen to their explanation of why they got this wrong, which again is inexplicable considering how, again, in the full context, it doesn't even come close to what they reported Tulsi said, right? But they say, well, we got it wrong because it was just an excerpt, right? We reported on an excerpt, basically saying that they didn't see the longer version of what she said, okay? However, as a journalistic outlet, as a news outlet, why would you report on an excerpt without making sure that you get the full context of what is said? Because why would it make sense in any context, really, for Tulsi to say that Putin and Trump are very good friends while speaking with an Indian news outlet, right? Tulsi is in India to conduct operations on behalf of the United States with India, right? She's focused on our relationship with India. So why, again, in any context, would Tulsi say that President Trump and Vladimir Putin are good friends, okay? And if you believe that she said that, right, wouldn't those statements be worth double and triple checking to make sure that that is who she's talking about? Because even if you listen to just an excerpt that didn't have the full context, she never said Putin, right? At all, okay? Nothing she said implied that President Trump was talking about Putin, okay? He could have been talking about any world leader, right? If all you saw was the excerpt. So before reporting on it as if it's fact, why would you not do your due diligence and to make sure that that's what she's saying? So again, they didn't even do basic journalism, okay? They didn't do basic journalism because it was so juicy. They couldn't pass it up. Tulsi, Russian asset, right? Puppet of Putin, okay? This is what they call Tulsi as well, too. She said that Trump and Putin are good friends. It must be true, right? It must be true. She said they are good friends. It got to be Putin. She has to be talking about Putin. That's 100% the mindset that whoever decided to run this story and the editors had, right? Before they decided to publish this. Again, the Trump derangement has caused them to be cognitively impaired, right? It has impaired their judgment when it comes to journalism, okay? Because I'm not a journalist, but before I would make a claim like that to say that she's talking about President Trump and Putin, I would make sure I double and triple check to be sure, okay, that that's who she's talking about. And if you're talking about an excerpt in which you don't know clearly that's who she's talking about, then you should probably do some research and get the longer clip to make sure that's who she's talking about before you run the story as if it is factual, okay? I mean, they straight up quoted her as saying that President Trump and Putin are good friends, even though she did not say that at all. And they ran with it as if it was factual. And then used the whole segment to smear the president. And these people get so mad, they get upset. They boohoo, whine, and cry when President Trump says what these outlets are doing, hey, in his opinion, are illegal.
And I believe that CNN and MSDNC, who literally write 97.6% bad about me, are political arms of the Democrat Party. And in my opinion, they're really corrupt and they're illegal. What they do is illegal. It makes no difference how big a victory I had. I can have the biggest victory in history. It makes no difference what kind of a failure the other side has.
I mean, I'm just saying, right? When MSNBC, when you're doing this type of sloppy journalism, right? When it comes to something that, again, just takes basic due diligence to get right. Yeah, I mean, it begs the question, are you doing this on purpose, right? Are you just taking anything that's negatively said about President Trump and then just putting it out there, okay? I think that's the case, right? I mean, this is why they love using the anonymous source so much, right? That they defend so heavily. Well, the reason why is because if an anonymous source puts it out there, even if they lied about it, it's not like CNN or MSNBC, they're going to come out and correct it and say, oh, well, the anonymous source lied. They're not going to say that because they don't have to. Nobody can verify if the quote is correct or if the source is valid or anything like. Nobody can verify, right? Because, again, it's anonymous. But see, in this case, where you're not getting the quotes from an anonymous source, you're getting the quotes from an interview that the world can see. Everybody can see exactly what Tulsi said. They didn't do basic due diligence, right? Which is to watch the whole video to make sure she's talking about what we say she's talking about, right? They didn't do that. So imagine how much due diligence they do with the so-called anonymous sources that give them Trump deranged propaganda, right? How much due diligence do you think they do? Probably not a lot at all, right? Probably zero. They just take it and they run with it because that's their job. Their job is not to check, okay, to make sure that it's true. Oh, this is Trump deranged. This is something that's going to hurt Trump. Cool. We're going to put it out there as if it's facts. And again, these are the same people that told the world that Biden was totally fine, right? Joe Scarborough. I know Biden personally. And let me tell you personally that if you don't believe that Joe Biden's the sharpest he's ever been, then F you. And this dude talks to the president almost on a daily basis. And he went on national television and told his audience that Joe Biden is not in mental decline. In fact, he's the sharpest ever, right? And you're the problem. You're the problem if you don't believe that. Just for Joe Biden to drop out of the race a few months later because he couldn't hide his cognitive decline from the world anymore, right? The media couldn't gaslight the American people on Joe Biden's mental decline. But again, this is how they play that game, right? And a lot of these so-called journalists, they'll come out and say, well, the reason why we didn't say that Biden was mentally declining, even though we kind of thought he was, is because the Democrats, the White House told us that he wasn't. So we just took their word for it. Oh, you took their word for it. You didn't do any due diligence. You didn't check. You didn't do actual journalism to make sure that the White House is not lying. See, again, that's how this game works. But notice how when Republicans make accusations against Democrats, how the media bends over backwards to try to prove it wrong, right? Like when it comes to the Hunter Biden laptop story. Oh, that's a Russian propaganda. That was confirmed by the intelligence community. All of these officers said Hunter's laptop came from Russia, right? They refused to investigate, right? Came up with all types of reasons for why it was not true, okay? But let a Democrat make accusations against Republicans and they're gonna peddle it as if it's factual, right? Factual. I mean, it's crazy. And you know, this is why President Trump calls the media fake news, right? They're fake news. MSNBC, they should be ashamed. They should be embarrassed. But they're not because they know who they are, right? They know they're an outlet of the Democrat Party. They know they're a glorified YouTube channel. So they don't have any standards. This is why they felt comfortable just running with it. Oh, an excerpt said that Tulsi said this. This is why they felt so comfortable not doing any type of journalistic fact-checking or due diligence. Because, again, they're not a journalistic outlet. So they don't see the need to do it, right? Their sole job is to push Trump derangement. And it doesn't matter if it destroys their credibility, right? Doesn't matter at all. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.